Good evening, race fans, and welcome to weekend 5 of the Herd Summer Racing League. Tonight we will have 2 laps of the Richmond UCI World's Course, and that means Prime Central. So we've got 2 sprints per lap and 2 climbs per lap. Distance-wise, we've got the Monument Avenue sprint at 4.0 kilometres, then Broad Street at 7.4. Then we've got 2 climbs, Libby Hill at 12.3 and 23rd Street at 13.8. And then on the second lap, we've got the second Monument Avenue at 20.3, Broad Street at 23.7, Libby Hill at 28.6, and then we have 23rd Street at 30.1, and the finish line will be at 32.8. So, Gordon Stone, it's going to be Prime Central.
Definitely tonight. I'm looking at 8 different primes over the 2 laps. So, a couple of sprints, a couple of KOMs, and they've got quite a gap between them each. So, I think there's plenty of time, or maybe not plenty of time, to have a bit of a rest between them. But certainly the primes will make the difference today. And there's a bit of a mixture, a couple of sprints. Not crazy long, both sort of between 200-300 metres, and a couple of variations in the climbs as well, with the first Libby Hill, which I suspect will probably take a few minutes, somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes, and then we've got the sprint up 23rd Street, so should be interesting on the primes. Richmond UCI is one of my favourites course, particularly the 23rd Street, so it should be very interesting. But yeah, we're just about to kick off the D Riders. We'll be following John Richardson, which competitive D rider. Looks like he's about 5th place overall in the league at the moment, so I'm expecting a strong ride from him. But we've also got some other favourites in here as well. I believe Steve Wilder's probably riding as well, so it should be competitive on the front. But we shall see. Who are we following in the C's, James?
So tonight in the C's, we are going to be following Michael Hamilton. His best 20 minutes is a 2.9, so I think he will be fairly competitive. Just a couple of things to point out tonight. Sadly, we just have myself and Gordon tonight. Ed, we mentioned last week that he'd had quite a nasty accident, but he's off to go and see the eye doctor today, and sadly we weren't able to find any cover. So Gordon is going to be doing his very, very best to try and follow categories B and D at the same time. And we've got everyone's favourite coach in category B to watch tonight, Stuart Barrington. And we hope he goes well. And obviously, we hope he suffers quite a lot at the same time, given the amount of pain he's inflicted on large numbers of people. So hope you go well, Stuart. And obviously, Michael and John as well. So the Ds have kicked off. What's going on?
The Ds have kicked off, and I think every week as we go along, more and more riders are understanding what to do in this sort of race. So we've kicked off. We've got John at the moment sitting on the back of this group of about 14 riders, and they're not going at a great pace. I mean, John's managing to do sort of between 2.2 to up time 2.6, 2.7, but in the group. So unlike normals with races where they normally hammer out the gates, I think everyone kind of knows that the primes count for a lot, so they have a bit of an easier start. That certainly seemed the way I've seen it in the last few weeks. So yeah, nice group at the front, group of 14. They have managed to distance a few riders further back, but I don't see any major splits. There's just 1 or 2, but looks like we're going to have this front group of 10 or 14 at least through the first sprint, and then see what happens. It's always a bit of a mixture of some that are going for the primes, some aren't, and what we tend to find is they sprint and then group back up afterwards. So looking good. I mean, John's just sitting in the pack. As I said, he's 5th overall, so he's had some good results in the league so far, I believe. Where this is now race 5. Ronnie's had a couple of silvers and a bronze trophy, so he might be going for the gold today. We'll see, but he'll be up against Steve, so that'll be the challenge for him. But looking good so far. But yeah, I mean, they're just rolling out as a group. We'll see how they get when they come to the sprint in a moment.
Thanks very much. So I mean, we've touched on it earlier very briefly, but I think this is one of mine and your favourite race routes. Loads of sprinting opportunities with 23rd Street really being more of a sprint than a climb. I mean, obviously you're going uphill, but you are going to be wanting to be sprinting up that hill at the same time. So you're basically looking at really 6 sprints and 2 climbs, and Libby Hill, I think we'll probably see the C's looking at around about probably 1 minute 45. D's maybe closer to 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes 30. But it's a very short climb as well. But we've got a couple of fairly short sprints. Monument Avenue is 220 meters and Broad Street is 280. So both under 300 meters. So expect the watts to be certainly the faster guys will be going well over 1,000 watts, and we'll see how they go on. But we are down to 1 minute 15 before the C's go, and I think that the D's are already about 2 kilometers down the road, Gordon.
2.1. I've just see someone throwing down a feather power up. I'm not quite sure where he gathered that from or how, but I don't think we've passed any banners yet that I'm aware of. But that's probably another point to touch on with the obviously various primes. There is quite an opportunity to pick up power ups, and they certainly will help for the sprints. As I suggest, it's really 6 sprints, 2 KOMs, because that 23rd Street is very short. I mean, I think probably the D riders are possibly looking in the 40 seconds maybe to win the front of that. They may be able to touch into the 30 seconds, but it's certainly more of a sprint than a KOM, I'd say. But yeah, this group's exactly as they were. 14 of them in the group, just stringing along nice together. 2.6k in, which I believe the first sprint, if I check my records, is about 4k. So they head all the way along this flat part of the course to start with on the sprints before they hit the switchback, and then they're straight into the sprint. So just as we're watching this, the group is stringing out a wee bit, but John is just hanging on to the back. But the pace does seem to have picked up slightly. Maybe doing sort of 3.2 on the front, one of them. Just to see if we get any live data on these, just to see what sort of riders we've got in the group. Sometimes there's some C or B riders that have dropped in that are maybe artificially increasing the pace, which looks like we might have that today. There's a couple of Bs signed up in a C, so you might find they're driving the pace in the front of the peloton at the moment. John has just drifted off the back a wee bit. Although in a race like this where primes count, that's quite a valid tactic as well, to rest up before the primes and then go for it. But certainly on the sprints you need a good draft. The KOMs you can make up for it, but sprints you need a draft that will certainly add 1 or 2 seconds to your time if you don't have anyone to draft through the start. But I'll cut back to you, I suppose, James. Now I take it the C's are just out the pin.
Yeah, they are. They had an initial blast of around about 3.5 to 4 watts a kilo, which is, to be honest, relatively subdued for a C start, and they're now settling in around about 3.5, maybe slightly under. And Michael's managed to hang on to the front group of, I would say, probably 20, 25 riders, if not more than that. So very big group to start with, and I think we can probably expect this to hold together for the first half of the lap. Even if most of these guys do compete for the sprint, because I'd expect it to bunch back again after that. But yeah, we'll see some riders with power ups. We've got an aero in here. We've got a truck. Not entirely sure. Actually, to be fair, we do actually go under the lap banner just after the pen.
Yep.
So yeah. So these guys would have picked up power ups very, very early on, and little surprised to see people dropping the aero in the truck quite so early. I mean, the truck's obviously really handy in a group sprint, and the aero will obviously give you a little bit of extra pace on the sprint as well. So quite surprised to see those dropped so early. But we will see how it goes. 1.1 kilometers down, free to go until the sprint. Gordon, you must be on it now.
We are, or John's right on the sprint. The front group, I mean, John's been dropped off from that front group of about 12 riders, so he's on the sprint himself at the moment. Looks like he's thrown down a feather power up. He's putting out some big numbers, not sort of red or orange in the power, so we'll just wait a second as he passes line. We'll see how we do. So he's shown up as 11th on the board with a 20.62, although I believe a lot of the riders in that group ahead are possibly not counting towards the league. I think there's possibly 3 or 4 of them, so I suspect overall that might be about 5th in the D group, so some decent points. But I suppose the competition, Steve looks like he's taken first place with a 17.84, which is nearly a whole second ahead of everyone else. So we can see Steve strong on the sprints, and we see how we get on. But I suppose the problem now with Johnny has been left alone, and that front group he's not going to catch on his own unless he jumps up with the C group. But looking at the layout, I mean, there's not many riders behind him, DCAT, so he's probably pretty safe in his current position for GC overall. So maybe it is the plan is just to go for the primes and see how he gets on with that, because there's no need to stick with that group ahead if he's going to make up some points on the primes. But I think he'll have his work cut out today to probably beat Steve overall in position. So we shall see.
So whilst the numbers are relatively slim compared to some of the other weeks we've seen, we've got a lot of familiar names in here. So just to reel off a few, we've got Larry Japson, we've got Alan Cheville, Brian Sultana, Herd of Koalas captain. Who else? We've got Felipe Alberto, who's a regular in this race. Tracy Allred from the Unicorn TTT team. Mark Morgan, Scott Howler's in here as well. I think this may actually be Scott's first sea race, and we've got Lisa Jones in here as well, as well as many others. So this sea pack is ridiculous. There's probably, I'd say probably 30 riders in here. Huge numbers in the lead pack. And we have about 1,500 meters to go until the first sprint. Not even that. So, Gordon, we'll just switch back to you, and then we'll cut back for the sprint.
So pretty much as we were, John is going along nicely, 2.4. So he's not sitting up completely, but there has a sort of gapped now. I mean, the front group look like about 50 seconds away. There's a couple of riders or few in between, but riding on he's not going to catch. Actually, looks like Steve, who was expecting to be competing for gold, has actually dropped off as well. So Steve looks like he's riding on his own about 18 seconds ahead. So maybe they've both got the same tactics. They're just going to sit up and go for the primes, because that front group of about a dozen riders, there's probably only two, I count, maybe three riders to worry about in it. So not too much to worry about. But let me go back. I reckon the bees will probably be starting very soon. See if I can flick back to them and see if we can see Stuart coming out the gate. I would have thought soon. Just as I've jumped onto them. So the bees going out 4 or 5 watts, the usual fast start from the bees, although it's hard to tell exactly. We'll see if they calm down, but there's a few familiar faces in the bees as well. Just having a look. I mean, there's probably half dozen herd riders in here, so should be good. Plus some other favourites, Matt Szymanski, that's always here as well. But other hard riders, Stuart's there. We've got Richard Hay, Justin Chandler, and David Chandler, which I presume are related. But looks like a strong B group as well. So we have started off with about 20 or 30 riders in this B group to start with, and again, they're not probably pushing out too hard for a B group, as you suggested, and before. Some riders are getting the hang of the points now in the prime, so they're not necessarily going out the gate like a rocket. But yeah, how are we doing? We must be approaching the sprint yet, are we?
200 meters to go. So we're just hitting the big U-turn, and then we will have the sprint in about 100 meters or so. Michael has positioned himself towards the front of the group. He's got a couple of riders just in front of him, and we'll see if he's he's definitely having a go at the sprint. 700 watts, 800, 900, holding around 950, going hard, using his aero. It's looking like a really good time here, actually.
See a lot of power ups going down there.
He did exactly 15 seconds, which is a tie for third place, but he's been classified as fourth. So Felipe came out on top with 14.66. Brian Sultana in second on his new fancy kicker bike, 14.68. Got someone from the herd of cheaters, but I can't see their name, 40.83. Benny Poynton, 15 seconds, and Michael also on 15 dead. So great times, going well, and I would strongly expect this group to regroup very, very shortly.
I expect so. Looking back at the Ds, we've got John Richardson there. I mean, he's probably holding that gap to Steve, but I suspect those two might come together. Neither of them seem to have any incentive to push with that front group, so I think they are just playing for the primes at the moment. So You
Got
might
to be
find when he
about to
comes
hit
back.
he's got to be on the second sprint now,
Yeah,
surely.
I can see John Rich on the second sprint now. I'm just actually let's see if I can cut back to him briefly. I was just watching Stuart, how he was getting on. It looks like Steve has taken the second sprint as well, so more points there for Steve. And let me get the time. So John, he passed in 13th again. Steve looks like he won it again by another second, so I suspect for John that's probably 4th or 5th on that sprint. So even already after a couple of primes, he's probably overall losing a few points there to Steve. So he's definitely going to have to kick it on the KOMs or the later sprints, or he won't be getting close to Steve. But looking good so far. Still certainly 4th or 5th on the sprints is a good effort. But I'll see if I can snip back and find the bees, because they will be getting near that first sprint, where it'll be interesting because there's a fairly decent sized group of bees riding together at the moment.
Yeah, it's looking like they've got about a kilometre and a half to go, and to be honest, that's where the C's are as well, albeit a kilometre and a half from the second sprint on Broad Street. So we've got a little bit of a lull period now, where we see the D's will shortly start heading downhill towards the climbs, and we've got I think about 1.4 kilometres for the C's to get to the second sprint on Broad Street. So just to have a quick recap, we've actually got a few Bs in the C race tonight, but we have looking like a front group of, looks like about 20 of them on Zwift Power, all at the same time and distance, and this group looks like it's probably 20-30ish, but it's all regrouped as we thought it would do after the initial sprint. So I think we're going to be all grouped up until Libby Hill, and I think that will probably shatter pretty much everything with 23rd Street practically straight after Libby Hill, and then you got the climb up to the lap banner afterwards. So expect groupings to remain for probably the next 10 minutes, and then it's gonna be carnage. Gordon, what's going on with John? How's he getting on?
I'm watching Stuart at the moment, so I suppose we'll cover on him for the moment, or John Bluethy looks like he's just carrying on his own at the moment. I'll have a check back in a moment, see if that gap to Steve is closing down. But we'll cut back to Stuart and the Bees at the moment, so they're just on the switchback before the sprint. So they're coming around the corner. There's a group of about 20 of them. We'll just wait a second. I'm sure we'll see some power-ups getting thrown out in a minute, and it tends to people ramp up as soon as they hit that corner. So he's sitting good in the group. He's about 9th or 10th in this little pack. We can see the first power-ups going now. Seeing aerial power-ups, but as we're passing the sprint line, 4, 5. We're seeing some orange numbers here. He's not up. He's 5, 7s. He's going now. Right, everyone is off now. Lots of red across the board. Looks like he's managed to grab himself an aerial power-up, so he's going good. There's some strong sprinters in this group though, so let's just have a check when he passes the line. I'm not sure if I'm able to get his time exactly on my view from here, but I'll try and see if I can confirm that. It looks like he was about 8th or 9th on the stream, so yeah, not a bad result, because certainly there's some strong riders in the B group.
Just quickly switching back to the C's, they've just gone through the second sprint, and Mike's managed to grab a second place behind Felipe again, who was in first with 18.61. Michael in second with 19.19. Brian Sultana third with 19.21. And we've got a Herd and a Dirt rider. I can't see the name. In fourth with 19.65, and then fifth place was 20.37. So Michael's definitely had two good results on the sprints, and we'll be looking to see how he gets on the climbs, which won't be a million miles away. I'm just quickly double checking the distances. So we've got 4 kilometers to go, just under 4 kilometers until the first climb at Libby Hill, which will be 600 meters. Starts off around about sort of 6-7%, and then ramps up to at times about 20-21%. So there's definitely some nasty bits on there. Gordon, how far up are the D's now?
Well, switch back to John at the moment. He's a couple of minutes off the pace from the front Ds, but he's at 11 kilometres with about a 30-second gap to Steve. But both him and Steve are riding alone, so they're going to be hitting Libby Hill alone, which I mean, you don't get much draft on that anyway. It's a KOM, so it's not really a disadvantage. But the gap's sort of holding about 20-30 seconds. So although he's still putting out the power, 2.3, 2.4, which is the top end you'd expect from a D rider. Looking back the way he's got about nearly approaching 2 minute gap, 1 minute 45 behind. So he's probably not really bothered with anyone passing him for the overall GC position, just waiting for that KOM to come, which I suspected he might have caught up with Steve, but at the moment they've not so far. So we'll see how they do on the KOM, and they might join up back together later in this ride, or they might both be happy and just riding as their own, or until the C group catch. That's the interesting we've seen with this event. When the C's and other riders start catching from behind, it can help pull people up. But yeah, how are the C's doing there?
Yeah, no, C's doing fine. They've had the steeper downhill section, and they are now heading down to the bottom end of the course before Libby Hill. And just what you were talking about in relation to C's catching with D's, and John potentially being able to use that to his advantage. My personal experience last week was that racing in the C's, a group of Bs caught up to me with about 2-3 kilometers to go to the sprint, and without them, I definitely wouldn't have had as good a result as I did on the sprint. Just being able to sort of hang on to them for a while, and that definitely helps.
So yeah, it definitely does. I mean, we saw it especially on the flats, probably the desert last week. If you manage to jump on the back wheels of some riders for the sprints and just to catch up, it can make up a lot of time on that. So just cutting back to John at the moment, it looks like Steve in front of him's hit the start of the KOM. We've got about 200-300 meters at the bottom of the Libby Hill KOM before it really starts hitting the incline. So just as John's passing 12.3 kilometers here, hit the bottom of the KOM. I can see the front D riders apparently did that in 1 minute 37, so that says some going. I suspect that was probably the B riders in the deep end, but yeah, John's kicked off. I can do him soon 3 or 4 watts a kilo up here, whether he'll hold that all the way up or not, but he's got a good target in front of Steve to chase, so if he can keep that gap to Steve similar, he'll be on a good time up the KOM, and I'm sure he'll be looking to try and pull some points back on this KOM and see if he gets anywhere. But yeah, the C's must be on the downhill now. They must be approaching pretty fast. I suspect they might probably catch the D's before the end of the first lap. But
yeah, so they are just coming up towards the U-turn at the very bottom end of the course, and then they will be heading off towards Libby Hill. We're looking at around about a minute gap to some of the back Ds. So may well catch from on Libby Hill, and we might catch John by the end of a lap, but I'm not convinced it'll be quite that early. So might take a little bit longer, but we'll certainly see how they get on. And they are just about to go through the big hairpin at the bottom, which is coming up just about now. And then we will start to see a bit of gradual climbing before we get to the banner.
Excellent. I'll just cut back to the Bs for a look. So it looks like they probably passed that sprint. Probably missed that one out on the second sprint. So I'll try and see if I can find out how they did there. But if I can find Stuart in this group, looks like he's still in this front group of Bs. We do have a large group, probably 15 riders, I'd say, in this group at the moment. And looking at it, there's no riders ahead. So yeah, this is the front group of Bs on the nice sort of downhill in Richmond, so they've probably got another 4 or 5 minutes till they hit that KOM, and then I suspect that might split this group up a wee bit. So far they've had it easy, holding together on the flat and the downhill, but as soon as that KOM kicks in, it's going to start going crazy. But yeah, have a look, see if I can cut back to Steve and John, who last time we met them, they were halfway up the KOM, so they must be approaching near the top of that now. Looks like Steve's just gone over the top. If I can get a time, not quite on that one yet. So how was the time? So Steve was 6 over the top with 2:23. And John is just approaching the top. He should be there in about 10 seconds. He's still pushing out good numbers, 3 or 4 watts a kilo. So we'll just give him just a second, see what sort of time he gets over here. See if he gets close. So he did a 2:44. So again, that's about 12th place. So he's certainly dropping 1 or 2 points down from Steve, but he's doing all right. You can see the C group coming about 50 seconds behind, so they must be on the hill. So see how they're getting on.
Yeah, so Michael's holding, say, high twos, low threes, and they're well into the climb now, and they're just hitting the 20% spikes now. Just saw 21% just there. Onto the cobbled section with 2 or 3 turns to go before they reach the banner, but the field is definitely all spreading out now, mainly single file going up the hill. 2 turns to go. Michael's dropping off a little bit, but he may well catch on the downhill afterwards, and potentially on 23rd Street, because he's obviously he's shown himself to have a very solid sprint. So he might claw back some ground as we go on to 23rd Street. But he's got 1 corner to go on Libby Hill, and we're seeing some great times here. 1:36 is leading the way. Michael's probably looking around, I'm guessing, about 1:50, 2 minutes. Over the line in 1:57, which puts him in 13th place. And then quick downhill, and then we'll be off to 23rd Street. Gordon, are the D's on 23rd yet?
They are, although I've actually just cut back to Stuart, so let me just quickly try and find the B's, because I was forgetting about that second 23rd Street sprint. So where are the D's? So the front D's are already over that. If we can find so John Richardson's right in the middle of 23rd Street. I can see him going up here at 2 or 3 watts a kilo. So looking at the times, we range from 36 seconds all the way to 1 minute 35. So as you can see, some people go for the sprint, some don't. Especially riders that aren't doing the whole league, they're just doing it for a GC. So we'll see in a moment. But John's just approaching the top, about just peaking out over 4 watts a kilo. So he's doing all right. But let's just see his time as he passes over. It looks like Steve ahead of him was about 5th. And John is better on 7th. He came that time with 1 minute and 12. So although he dropped a few points to Steve still, but I think he'll be happy with that time at the moment. That's probably his best prime so far. So looking good. With the C's, I can see charging up behind him. So James, how are they doing?
Just hit 23rd Street now. Michael's dropped a truck power up to get a bit of draft going up the hill, and he's having a really good crack here. He's definitely picking up places. There's been quite a big split on the C's, but he's definitely picking up spots now, and we're seeing the top time at 29.53 seconds, which is fantastic effort. And Michael has a 35.09, putting him in 3rd spot, which is fantastic effort. But yeah, no, so I think off the top of my head, he was 5th on the first sprint, 2nd on the second sprint, I think 12th on Libby Hill, and he's actually been upgraded to 3rd place on 23rd Street. So good haul of points so far. That's all the primes for this lap. So he's going to have that pretty nasty 3rd climb that isn't classified up towards the start finish banner, and then we'll get to do it all over again. Have the B's hit? B's must be on Libby Hill now.
So they've just tarred the lower section of Libby Hill, where you get about 200-300 meters sort of gradual incline, only about 2 or 3%, but it's enough for something to start kicking in and putting up the power. So I can see Stuart just as we're turning into the cobbles, he's dropped down a feather power up as we hit the 16%. So he's going up well. It's quite strung out with the B's here, so we'll just see how they get over the top and what sort of group they get to down the other side, because at the moment it's just a line of riders on Zwift. He's looking about 17th place, but pushing out good watts, sort of 3-4 watts a kilo up here. So I can see Max Szymanski right behind him with the green jersey, so he did well in the previous round. But they're quick group up here, the Bees. So I've not seen the first time up for the Bees, but it is very strung out. There's a few of them managed to get off the front, but Stuart's doing all right at the moment. Still pushing up 4.5 watts as he's just getting distance. He's got a group of about 4 or 5 riders just in front of him, so he'll be looking to try and stay on those wheels over the top. But
Top
give it a
time for the
couple of
Bees is
seconds.
1 minute 18.
So, okay, excellent. So that is Stuart just over the line. So not a bad effort there. And I'll see if I can get a time on that in a moment. But he's over the line. If he can just grab on the back wheel, these couple of riders in front of them, then I think he'll be happy and ready for the next lap too. But
1 minute 44 for Stuart.
Excellent time. So I believe we have actually been joined by a fellow D rider, Ian McCleverty, who's going to be watching John. So good evening, Ian. How are you doing? How are you getting on?
Yes, very good, very good. John's just making his way still to the finish line up the final hill that doesn't quite make it as a KOM, but he's still sitting at 2.4, looking quite steady. I'm sure he'll be happy when he's past this hill and on the flat and can start preparing himself for the next sprint. Steve seems to be making headroads as well and catching that group in front actually. So whether everybody's just preparing for that next sprint, I think is the call for them to do.
Other C groups or James? Can you?
Yeah, no. Michael Hamilton in the Seas is currently on that the third non-classified climb on the steeper part, about 6-7%. It's just coming up to the left-hand turn where the climb will drop off considerably, and then we'll have the start-finish banner, and then about I think it's about 4 kilometers to the first sprint. Can see some Bs have gone through, and just having a quick look on Zwift Power. So Steve Wilder is about a minute in front of the leading Cs. Some of the C's have gone past John Richardson, and Michael Hamilton is about 3 seconds back, so should shortly be overtaking John. And yeah, I can see John on the Zwift map now. In the same group now. If he can hang on, that would definitely help a sprint, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to.
He seems to be doing okay. He seems to be holding on to 1 or 2 of them. There was a few passing them, and he's just managed to hold on to the last few. Hopefully he can keep onto those on the flat and really make some ground on Steve as well.
Yeah, it's definitely worth having a wee bit of a kick just to try and get onto that group in front, and that will either give you a bonus through the sprint, save a few seconds, but also give the possibility a chance to catch a rider that maybe got away earlier in the ride. But getting back to Stuart recently, he's just passed 23rd Street KOM, as we call it. I believe he's about 16th or 17th on the board, so not bad. Although at the moment he's been a wee bit distanced. He's got looks like actually a C rider on his wheel, but at the moment he's just pushing to try and catch up with a Jay Chandler, and there's another B rider come flying past him at the moment. But just as he's approaching the bottom of the last unclassified climb up to the start finish banner. But yeah, how are the C's and the D's? Are they managing to merge together at the front?
Yeah, so we've got a group of C's here. So we have dropped John and the other D rider that was with this group. So we're at 17.1 kilometers now. The next sprint for Monument Avenue is at 20.3. So we've got about 3 kilometers to go. Mainly pan flat. We've got a group here of, I would say, probably 7 or 8 riders. And again, someone's dropped their aero early. Not entirely sure for the rationale why you would drop an aero power up about 3 kilometers for a sprint, but they've evidently decided that was the right thing to do for them. But yeah, so 3K to go to the sprint. what's going on with Stuart? Are they closing in on these Cs?
So Stuart at the moment, he's going with that last climb as we well, not climb as we call it. He's got a couple of Bs right in front of him. I see he has dropped the truck power up, which, talking of odd places, that is a bit of an odd one, dropping that power up on the hill. I suppose it'll give limited bonus using a truck power up on the hill, but he is getting distanced a wee bit by a couple of riders in front of him, so it just depends how he gets over the top of this hill. Looking back, there's a couple of B riders at 16 and 26 seconds, so it's looking fairly spread out in the Bs at the moment. If I just cut forward, they're all coming over the top of the hill, but I suspect the front group are probably up at the banner, and there's probably half a dozen, but they are quite spread out, but I suspect they'll come together a wee bit on the flat, but unfortunately maybe not with Stuart in that involved. He might be in the second or third group on the road, or possibly even merge with some Cs or even A's at some point will be coming through, but it's just as he's coming around the last corner at the moment, so he should be finished that first line shortly, and it's very strung out. There's riders all over the place, so we'll just see how they group up in a couple of moments' time.
We've just been hearing from John Richardson II, who currently races in B category, but he's contemplating staying up late on a couple of Friday evenings just so he can race in this race, and then we can cover John Richardson I and John Richardson II both at the same time, which should make things
confusing.
should make things particularly confusing, which will be fantastic. But back to the Cs, we're still this group of 7 or 8, and we are about 1.5 kilometers away from the first sprint on the second lap. How far back is Stuart and the group? We're at 18.8 here, at 18.9 in the Cs.
So Stuart is just passing the lap banner at the moment. He's riding alone. There's another rider, Jay Chandler, 2 seconds ahead, so he's having a bit of a push to see if he can get on the wheel. I think it's probably worth the effort, because looking back the way, you've got about a 30-second gap to the next rider, so if he can form a bit of a mini peloton with the two of them, that'll be some small advantage, although I don't see him catching up with the B riders that are further ahead. So he's probably best now just to play it for the primes and potentially even sit up a wee bit and wait for the A group, although looking at the clocks, the A group are still showing about 4 minutes back, so it'll be interesting to see whether they manage to catch up, as he's just actually passed that rider. He's still pushing though, so we'll see what he can do in the primes. It might be intentional to have a wee bit of a sit up and rest for the primes anyway, but he's looking alright at the moment, but he is riding completely alone, so that might affect his sprint performances. Or he's got Jay Chan on the wheel now, so just have to wait and see if they manage to work together, and not too bad. So how is the front going? Did the C's and the D's, who's in the lead now?
So we've still got this group in the C's, not quite the front group, or am I lying? Hang on, let me just quickly check. No, it is actually the front group of C's. So, but I think they're all together.
Yep.
And we are about 500 meters away from the first sprint. So this could potentially, if anyone really feels like having a proper go, they have a good go at the sprint, and then try and stay ahead afterwards. I mean, obviously that's particularly difficult, and you'll only see it very, very rarely. But we can see the sprint banner on the left-hand side, and we will be doing the sharp hairpin very, very shortly, and then we'll see how things pan out. But we've got about, I think, 300 meters until sprint, so we'll just hang with them and see if we see any movement on the sprint board. So the leaderboard that we were able to see on our screens is for the entire race, so we won't be able to see the individual times for this lap, but we will be able to see if anyone improves on their time previously. But Michael Hamilton is in the absolute perfect spot. He's got about, I'd say, probably 8, 9, 10 riders in front of him, and if they all go at the same time, then he's going to have a perfect drafting opportunity. And he's throwing down what's now 700, 800. little bit of fatigue in the legs compared to last time round, but he's also dropped an aero power up, which will definitely help. And he's pushing hard towards the line. And over now. No improve. Oh, yeah, actually, no, that's a lie. He's actually improved his time on this one by 0.1%. 0.1%, 0.1 seconds. And moves up in the overall leaderboard to 4th place. But I think that could be very close to challenging 1st place for the second lap. So great job. Quickly switch back to Ian to see how the D's getting on that sprint.
Yeah, John's just hit the sprint now. He's, I think he's just also he had a good group around him, but he's just got dropped there on the sprint. The group of C's have flown away from him, unfortunately. He was travelling with Todd for a couple of miles just before, a couple of kilometres before the sprint as well, but which managed to jump onto that group and has created a good gap of about a minute between himself and Todd. Steve must be much further ahead as well. I can't quite see him where he is on the course, but John's just trying his best to hold on to this group of C's, but I'm not sure he's going to make it. There's some definite strong riders in there, and I think they were getting ready for the sprint, and now they're off to go and climb some hills. So I think he's going to struggle to hold on to those. So it might be a solo TT for the next while, unless there's any more C's or B's even that are going to come past as well. And if he can just hold on to them for even a short amount of time, it makes a big difference, even on the flats or the hills.
Gordon, has Stuart hit the first sprint yet?
He's not. So he's at 19.3, which I think we reckon that sprint, believe, where are we? Is about 20.3. So he's got about a kilometre to go. He's still in his little two-man peloton here, though. He's catching up with a couple of, looks like C riders and a D rider. So I suspect these might sort of merge together as we approach in the sprint. But it depends whether they're playing the games, going for the primes or not, if they'll give any advantage. But I suspect he'll jump on the back of this group and have a little draft for them for a wee while and rest up, ready for the sprint. Because looking back, I'm not seeing any help. I mean, the A riders are still showing us over 4 minutes behind, so I suspect we're not going to see any A groups till the latter part of this race. So there's not much point probably waiting for them. But looking forward, he's about 30 seconds behind a couple of the sprint winners. I can see a Max Szymanski and I'm not sure. I think it's Jay Christensen I've heard as well. So they both each got a couple of a green jersey each and a polka dot jersey there for one of the KOMs. So that looks like his competition. But at the moment, he's just jumped in this little group of 5 riders. So it looks like a D rider, a couple of C's and a B, which is kind of the normal with these races at this sort of stage. Behind the sort of front 2 or 3 groups, it just turns into a bit of a mess with different categories, riders all over the place, and you find them just grouping up. As riders get tired, you find they jump on and form little pelotons with different categories, which sometimes is very good. It helps you catch up, but just as he's turning that hairpin bend round for the sprint, but I suspect this group maybe not quite give him as much help as he wants from the sprint, but we'll see in a moment if he actually is going for it. But he's sitting in second wheel, doing about 3.5 watts at the moment. Just going to see if he's going to ramp up and go for it. I can see a truck power up getting put down behind him, but as he's pushing up 3, 4, 6, so he's going it again. I can also see Jay Chandler. There's a couple of orange numbers in there as well. It's a C rider, H Cheval as well, but it looks like Jay Chandler's got him on the sprint and he's pulling away with a feather power up. No, sure, it's still pushing. Not sure if we'll manage to grab his time. As you said, it's the second time round in the sprint, so if they didn't improve it, we won't see it. But he's through the sprint and the power's been cut back down to 1, so he's just resting up again now. So just taking it easy. How's anyone else? Anyone new to the second sprint?
Yep, we are about 200 meters away from the second sprint in this group of probably 8, 9, 10 riders. Michael's again picked a really good spot, so he's the back wheel in this group at the moment, and he will ramp up very shortly. I think, yeah, must be just about to pass the start of the sprint line. Yep, so you can see the start of the sprint line just in front of us, and is what's going up now? 300, 600, 700, 800. Hanging on to 600-700 watts. Dropped the truck power up to get a bit of extra drafting, and it's looking like he's flying through the field. So are we going to see improvement in time? Doesn't appear to be any faster on the second sprint compared to the first, but definitely lead contender on this lap. So depending on how well Felipe Alberto rode this one, he's a little bit further up the road. But I think Michael's definitely podium for the second Broad Street sprint. Ian, the D riders coming up to the second sprint.
Jonathan's just approaching it now. I think Steve's already gone through. I can't see he's improved on his time. William looks as if he's improved on his time. He's taken first. So Jonathan has managed his efforts well, let's say. For the last few kilometres, he's got nobody pressuring from behind. And the gap up to the person in front is around about a minute. He's just gone over the start line. For the sprint, he's picking it up to 3 watts. But I think
maybe just that's
still going. He's still up to 3. He's coming to the end. Previous times 26. Got about 50 meters to go. Don't think he's going to improve on his time. So he's just crossing the line now. No, he didn't improve on his time, but there was a definite effort there. So he should still have done quite well on the primes. And then it's off to Libby Hill, I think, for them all.
So cutting back to Stuart, we've still probably got another kilometre to the sprint, but he's found a few riders to at least go along with. He's still with Jay Chandler in the B, so he's proven a good sort of ally at the moment, although they're both competitive on the sprint, and it looks like Chandler got him on the last sprint, but there's a couple of C riders in here as well. 4 of them in this little group, which they're looking quite comfortable. For a B rider, he's going along at 2.5 to 3, so hopefully getting a bit of recovery here before that sprint comes. And as probably a bit like Jonathan, there's not really a need to push it to try and catch anyone. Looking at the B rider ahead is it looks like Szymanski, which is now over a minute ahead. And back the way, there's again, well, it's actually about 22 seconds back the way, so he needs to keep an eye on that. But he doesn't have to go crazy trying to push to keep away from them. But yeah, we probably go about half a kilometre to the sprint, and so we'll see how that goes in a moment. James, how's the C's group? Are they all still bunched together?
Yeah, we've still got this bunch. I just wanted to quickly call out the fact that Michael's course knowledge has actually been fantastic. He's been using the Aerotuck whenever he can to maximum benefit on the 6% descents. So making sure he gets the most recovery possible before we get down to Libby Hill, which so Libby is at 28.6 kilometres, so we've got about 1.5 kilometres to go, and then we'll be climbing up Libby, and then 23rd Street, and then the third climb towards the finish line. So not too far to go now. We've only got just over 5 kilometres to the finish line. And at 27.1 kilometres, we are 1.5 kilometres away from Libby Hill. So all going well. And Michael's had some great sprint efforts so far. And also he's done well on 23rd Street on the first lap as well. So looking to pick up lots of points, and he's currently 7th wheel. So looking to pick up lots of GC points as well. So having a great race so far.
Back to Stuart there briefly. He's on the sprint there for he's just come through at the moment. So he definitely picked up the power, but like all the other groups we saw, them weren't quite hitting the same peaks as the first lap. So just to see if he improved on his time. I don't believe he improved on his time there. So although he will still got some good points, he definitely did kick it up. So but wherever he got close to the sort of front riders that got the green jerseys ahead, we'll have to wait and see on the primes after. certainly Chandler, the other rider that he was with, was pushed out ahead of him. So I suspect he didn't beat him, and they've settled back down to about 2.5 at the moment. So, and they're just going to regroup, wait for the primes again, and then we're going to hit the 2 hills in that last classified climb up to the banner. Although at this rate, it could be a bit of a battle for the line for the GC. Sometimes we see riders that's kind of they're all on their own at the end and nothing to race for. But if this continues as it is, it could be a race with Stewart and Jay Chandler to the line for a couple of GC points as well. So could be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Ian, how's John getting on? Has he got a bit of company back there?
Well, he's just been passed by a flying group of bees, and he had a short effort to try and stick with those, but I think wisely he wasn't going to stick with those. So he's still sat, but he's managing his efforts. He's still sat at 2.5, 3, so he's still putting in a good stint. He's just coming to the bottom of the hairpin in the next half a kilometre, and then it's up Libby Hill. I think the race at the front, I think between William and Steve, I think might be close with some of the primes. I think Steve's round about a minute behind William on the GC, so I'm not sure how that might be a close race on the points to see how that one finishes. But John's doing really, really well. But it's an individual time trial for him for the rest of this, I think. So it's mind over matter to try and get him up these last few hills and up to the finish line.
Thanks, Ian. Michael has just gone over the start banner for Libby Hill. So we've got a little ramp of about 4 to 6% for the opening part, and then we will head up the nasty cobbled section of up to 21%. So don't think we'll see much in the way of improvement on these times. Not normally on the second lap. Obviously, riders are a little bit tired, and don't tend to see faster times on the second lap. So I may well be wrong. But Michael's going well, about 3.5 watts a kilo, pushing hard, and he is just heading up to the first of the nasty corners. So hitting 9%, and then massive ramp up to 21, and we're onto the cobbles. So about 3 corners to go. Still, what's a brilliant high freeze with I would say probably about 200-300 meters to go before the end of the climb. And it's the problem with Libby Hill is the gradient is up and down all the time. So you have really, really steep corners, and then once you get around those corners, you drop down to about sort of 5-6%, and then hit another corner again, like up to sort of 17-18%, and get over the corner, and then the gradient drops again. But he can see the banner now. Probably about 200 meters to go. One more corner, and then he'll be over. Still holding the power really well. 3.5 watts a kilo, up to 4 again to push hard for the line, and we'll see if there's any improvement. Over the line now. No, it's looking like his first lap time is going to be the better of the two, which is perfectly understandable. But now he's got a nice little period of recovery before we hit 23rd Street. Gordon, how close are the bees now?
Well, I don't know about the front of the bees, but cutting back to Stewart, he's on the bottom part of the Richmond course. I'm not quite sure where you'd call it. 27.5 kilometres in, which I believe the hill starts about 28. So he's got about another kilometre to go. He's still with the same little group at H-Cheval. Looks like I heard a Huskies rider, a C rider. So won't be directly competing with him and the other Jay Chandler, which I believe is Justin Chandler, another hard rider. So those two are neck and neck at the moment. We have seen in the meantime another rider, Fadil Boo, I think. There's another B rider has gone past him. Has actually opened up looks like a 16-second gap now. So that rider appears to be riding more at sort of B pace, sort of 3.5 watts, whereas Stewart's, I would say they're quite happy going along at 2.5 to 3 watts per kilo, just waiting for the the primes to come in. But looking at the data, it certainly looks like Stuart and Justin are going for the primes more than maybe Fadil. So we shall see. But yeah, they're just under the sort of the archway building, about to hit the hairpin bend, and then they'll be on to Libby Hill in probably half a kilometre to a kilometre. But maybe just cut back to Ian there. I believe John is probably halfway up Libby Hill, is he?
Yep, he's just hit the cobbles, so he's going from the steep bit to the even steeper bit. He managed to find a group just before of, I think they were Sea Riders, which he managed to keep hold of for around about 3/4 of a kilometre. But unfortunately, he's just dropped off the back of that group. But he's just coming to the last corner on this, putting out some good watts. It must be difficult on this. You feel as if you're going nowhere on this, and you can spin and spin and spin, but you don't feel as if you're going forward. He's over the worst of it now, and just still on the cobbles. Unfortunately, the group has now gone. Would have been good to try and keep hold of them on for the downhill, approaching 23rd, but he can rest when he gets to the top a little bit before he hits the 23rd.
Yeah, so Michael's over the 23rd Street climb. He was holding about 450 watts for the first half, and I think legs were just a little bit tired, and he wasn't able to hold it up for the whole climb, which is perfectly understandable considering that he's already done 4 sprints, and that was his 4th climb as well. So he's not too far away from the line now. So he's 34.1 kilometers with the finish line at 32.8. So he's just got the last climb towards the line, and then the pain will be over. Gordon, how's Stuart getting on?
Oh, yeah, he's just hit the bottom of the KOM, and Justin Chandler in front of him's just dropped the Fevre power up and opened up about a 10-15 metre gap. So although we did use the Fevre power up on the lighter part of the course, and see Stuart's just dropped the same Fevre power up as well, just as we're hitting the cobbles. So he'll be looking to try and catch that gap up to Justin, and certainly try and keep a hold of his wheel before the end of this race, because if you lose a rider over the top of the climb, that's probably the last point you're going to see them in the race. So he's still pushing up here. Good numbers, 4 watts a kilo up here. Though that gap to Justin is still about 5 seconds. We'll just see in a moment if he manages to close that down, because I don't see many other riders round about. He's just passing another rider, D Smith, a B rider as well. So as you previous rides, I don't think many of them are going to improve on their time this second lap. So it's a bit hard to tell exactly how they're doing, but it looks like that gap maybe to Justin is actually going out the way, as Justin is at the top. There's about 6 watts a kilo pushing up to the line, 8-second gap at the moment, but it depends. If they both go easy after the KOMs, as they have done on the previous sprints, they might come back together, though possibly now, if I was Justin with his 10-second gap, I'd maybe keep the power down a wee bit, see if we can keep Stuart at bay. Certainly not intentionally let him on to my wheel with just the last probably 5 kilometres to go, but Stuart's over the top on his own at the moment. I don't believe improved on his time, so we'll have to wait then to see exactly how he got on with the points. But yeah, he's got about a 13-second gap back the way. But yeah, how is the front? Or I believe John is probably on the sprint on 23rd Street, is he, Ian?
He is. He's halfway up it. He's done really well on the downhill. Didn't take advantage of the super tuck, which I was surprised at. But he had some good speed coming out of that, considering the hill that he'd come up on Libby Hill. He's just approaching the line now. As James said before, there doesn't seem to be too much improvements on the primes on the second lap due to fatigue, I think. He's just coming over the line now. Did seem to be putting in a good stint there. No, unfortunately, he's not improved on his time, but like I say, nobody else has as well. So he should have done well there. And he's just has that one little hill that unfortunately isn't a KOM, and then he'll hit the finish line. I'm sure he'll be happy.
Yeah, so Michael is currently in 10th spot out of 44. His nearest competitor is a T Taylor, who is 5 seconds behind, and he's got a 15-second gap in front, so he's just around the last corner, and we've got about 500 meters to go. He can just about see the banner in the distance, so he just needs to hold these numbers down. Taylor is now about 8 seconds back, so it's looking like he should be good for 10th spot. Still holding 2.5, 3 watts a kilo, and doing a great job. We're now down to about the last, I'd say, we're just going past the 300 meter sign, so 25 seconds in front and 10 seconds behind to Lisa Jones, who looks like she will probably take 11th spot. Michael's just throwing down his aero power up and pushing up the numbers, 300, 400, and got 100 meters to go, and 50, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and over the line. Well done, Michael. Michael finishes in 10th spot. So back to Ian.
Yeah, Jonathan's doing fine. He's just starting on the hill back up to the start finish line. I've jumped ahead and just looking at Steve as well. He seems to have made up that. It was up to a minute at one point on William, and he's literally just passed them just about 5 or 10 seconds ago. So Steve's now leading on Zwift Power, is leading the D class. So might take all the points again to maintain his maximum point haul for the series so far. So I'm sure everybody else is doing fine. Jonathan's doing fine, and Steve seems to be cruising a little bit now to the finish line. He's just coming to the top of the hill.
Gordon, how's Stuart getting on?
Yeah, so he was on 23rd Street Sprint for a couple of minutes ago, so he put a bit of an effort on that. Again, not exactly sure where he finished up. Looking at the riders ahead, Justin Chandler has now a 20-second gap, so I suspect he won't catch him, but he does have another B rider right with him, F Boo. So those two are on wheel, so it may be a bit of a battle up the last hill against him, but we can also see the A riders starting to approach as well, so 4 or 5 seconds, although with this last hill there's possibly not much opportunity to get draft from an A rider, not quite enough pace to get a good draft, but at the moment, yeah, I think it's going to be Stuart v F Boo for the overall GC on these two for that extra point if he can hold onto the wheel, as we see the A riders coming past, and yeah, no chance there. They're flying past it, 5.5 watts a kilo, so good going if you're still doing that after nearly 50 minutes of racing, but neck and neck at the moment. See how they're going up this hill, but yeah, we should, I believe, is John approaching the top, or how's he getting on, Ian?
Yep, he was just for a second there. I thought he might have been getting a little bit of pressure from behind, but he seems to have pulled away from that, and I'm sure he'll be comfortable from the people behind. William in front is around about 20 seconds, and then I think a further 20 seconds ahead of that is Steve, who could well have finished now, actually.
Yeah, just have a look at the rider behind. It looks like an E Grant, although he is pushing, so
he's getting closer and closer, but I think it should be fine.
Gets over the
John's
hill,
just
then he
approaching
should
the
be
flat
fine.
now. He's coming off the worst of the hill. He's still putting in some good watts. I think he's just realised how close the rider is behind him, suddenly shooting up to 3 watts per kilogram. So
Yeah.
well done, John. I think he'll hold on to that position, and I think Steve has finished, so he probably will take first place.
Yeah, looks a good result for John there. It'll probably be close between him and possibly William, depending how they come for the second place. But
yeah,
Stuart as well is just round that last bend. He's got a 2-second gap to F Boo in front, so depends whether he's got any kick left. Although Boo is still putting out 5 watts per kilo, so he's going to struggle to close that gap unless he's really got a sprint at this point. Though there's A riders coming past as well, so. But I think it's going to take a full-on sprint effort to catch it. That gap seems to be going out the way, so looks like he's just cruising to the finish line at the moment. Looking back the way is a 10-second gap, so I'm sure he'll be happy with the result at the moment. On Zwift, I believe he is 20th.
Quickly
that
switch back.
relates
Sorry, very
to-
quickly switch back to Ian because I think there's Brian Sultana is just about to overtake John Richardson.
Oh. Sorry, I've lost him.
You're okay.
right on the line.
I think Brian Sultana managed to sprint to the end, and we've got. I think we've just got Stuart finishing, but Brian Sultana managed to outsprint John Richardson and be pretty much underneath the banner. So I'm sure that'll be hard to bear. But I think Gordon, did Stuart manage to hang on to his position?
It was only really him and Justin Chandler in front of him, which Justin was pulling away on the line. There wasn't much danger really of anyone else catching. So, yeah, he hung on to his position, which, looking at Zwift power, estimate somewhere about 12th or 13th at the moment. We'll have to see. There's a couple of A riders in there that will get thrown out the results, but done all right. We'll just have to wait and see. Wait for the race director to sort out the primes, and then we'll see what how the overall positions settle down.
He will sort them out fairly soon, no doubt. A big thank you to my commentary team of Ian McCloudty and Gordon Sloan for tonight, and also to our riders, Michael Hamilton in C, Stuart Barrington in B, and John Richardson in D. And thank you, as ever, to Damon Bates for supplying these the pictures we've all been able to watch and enjoy, and to everyone who's been watching tonight. I'm James Bailey. Thank you and good night.